and welcome to Dominating Diversity. I'm Brooke here, and I'm joined today by Charlotte Blair, a Gallup Certified Strengths Coach who became a successful businesswoman whilst conquering dyslexia herself. Author of Career Unstuck and a passionate supporter of coaches and leaders. Charlotte's LinkedIn page says, "Most teams I meet aren't broken. They're just a bit stuck." It speaks on many levels, which I hope we can touch on. Charlotte, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for asking me in. Love it.
You are so welcome. So, firstly, explain your saying to me. Most teams I meet aren't broken, they're just a little bit stuck.
Yeah, I think every stakeholder that engages me to come in and run a workshop or coach their team, I hear a lot of common patterns in there. And it might be things like, oh, we just need to improve our communication, or we find ourselves working in silos and we just need to be a little bit more productive, or trust is a little bit of an issue in our team. We sort of hear these common patterns. I think most team members and most leaders, I say most in quotation marks, are pretty self-aware. I think the challenge is they're not necessarily always aware of others. So it's not like they're broken exactly that. It's just a little bit of a nudge in the right direction, a little bit of understanding how somebody else thinks, feels, and behaves can then open up a pathway to improving some of those things. So I kind of, think about that just being a bit stuck in the mud, or, sort of just something feeling a little bit sticky, and how do we free it?
Yeah, yeah. And it does happen everywhere in institutions, in businesses, in health. So your job is very important. Tell me, how did you start your company? Because it's very niche. And what was the driver to your success?
So my background is actually IT sales. So I spent 7 years working for Canon and then 12 years working for the big global telco Verizon. And I remember discovering my strengths back in 2009. And I remember reading my Clifton Strengths report, it's called Strengths Finder 2.0 then. And I remember reading it going, yeah, that sounds like me. And I didn't really do a huge amount with it until I arrived in Australia and I had the opportunity to attend the Stephen Covey 7 Habits of Highly Effective People course. And that got me thinking. One of the sections in there was thinking about your mission and purpose in life. And I realized that my mission and purpose in life was not to be a great IT salesperson. When I think about the things that I love doing, it was around people, helping people be the best versions of themselves, helping teams reach goals. And that led me down a career shift, a career change from selling to coaching facilitation. And then I sort of left the organization. I went to work for a small learning and development company, still wasn't able to sort of follow my passion for strengths, and then set up a business with a couple of other coaches. Within 6 months that I ended up, one of them became ill, the other one got tied up in a contract, and I ended up, being on my own. But I say on my own, I've never been on my own because I love working with a community of other coaches. I love partnering with my clients. So I think the success, comes down to this piece about partnering, which then I guess, leads on to the piece about diversity. We
Yeah.
all think, feel, and behave differently. How do we leverage those differences to achieve success?
Yeah, I think some people don't understand the power in collaboration as well. Some people do want to take all the credit for themselves, but sometimes collaboration is such a powerful part of your own success as well. Um, Charlotte, your work centers on helping managers develop their teams through a strengths lens. How do you see diversity playing into that coaching approach?
Yeah, well, for sure, we know that, if we think about the strengths-based approach, we start with talent first. And talent is how we naturally think, feel, and behave. And we know that everybody thinks, feels, and behaves. So yes, I use, the tool Clifton Strengths as an assessment to be able to help identify talent. And I think one of the staggering factors that I love there is the chances of somebody having the same top 5 talent themes in the same order as somebody else is 1 in 33 million.
Oh,
So that really goes to show how we do all think, feel, and behave differently. So it's not just a thinking pattern, it's not just a personality difference, it's not just how we feel. That whole diversity of, all aspects, knowing that we all do that differently and having an appreciation and an understanding, as frustrating as it might be sometimes, like you say, whether it be institutions or whether it be in family or whether it be in workplaces, we forget that sometimes and go, God, why is that person doing what they're doing?
mm.
I wouldn't do it that way. And we have to remind ourselves sometimes that we are all different, and that those differences can be an advantage.
Yeah, yeah. It's about recognizing and leveraging differences rather than trying to fit everybody into the same mold, which
Yeah.
which happens, which does happen.
Well,
But
it does happen. You think about, when we're born,
mhm,
we're measured in terms of weight and height and whether we,
yes,
walk at the right time. We're at school, we're constantly measured up against others.
yeah,
They try to fit us into molds at school. So I think we spend our whole life, trying to fit a mold, and which is why it's a bit of a mindset shift for some people thinking about that strengths-based approach.
yeah,
We're
yeah.
hardwired for deficit and hardwired to fix our weaknesses.
Hmm.
Bit of a
Yeah,
mindset shift to go, no, focus on what you're really good at, focus on your talents because you're going to get a better return there.
yeah. What society expects of us. That's what
Exactly.
we should fit into, right? But what are the repercussions of that? In this line of work, what are the repercussions of people thinking that everybody does or can fit into the same mold? Obviously,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
a
Well,
lot behind that.
yeah. So, it's loss of productivity, it's loss of engagement. It can even lead to, safety incidences, whether we're talking about psychological safety or we're talking about physical safety. If we all thought the same way, if we all had the same ideas, there wouldn't be that, I guess, diversity and imagination and new ways of doing things. If we all did things in exactly the same way, then we wouldn't lead to those new innovations. So it has so many different repercussions when we think about some of the evidence and facts that Gallup have around being able to focus on what we do best and focus on our strengths and having that diversity. We're not just talking about productivity, profitability. We're also talking about sort of retention or
Mm.
how many people might leave an organization
Yeah.
because they don't have the opportunity to do what they do best. I know Gallup have just issued their latest report around engagement numbers, and there's been a drop. And it's a shame that we don't leverage the uniqueness that everybody brings and that
Yeah.
diversity of thought, feeling, and behavior as
Yeah.
much as we could.
Yeah. I'm definitely on board for that. I know that in the past I've gone for jobs as a younger person. Obviously, I've been doing this a while now, but as a younger person, even telling them I'm an autistic person, the label is slammed on me straight away, and I seem to be shut off or judged straight away without them even knowing me. Yet people that have taken the chance have been able to see my skills are, if they use them the right way, anyone can flourish. Not just me, but anyone. However, if you shut a person down before they can even sort of speak, you're not going to see those strengths shine at all. I hope that makes sense. But I felt it. I felt it myself as a younger person. And obviously, using a strengths-based approach is very similar to me in my line of work, being in education. I love the idea of strength-based teaching and learning, but how does this differ when we look down a leadership lens? Does that differ from, say, education and teaching?
Um, I'm not sure it differs a huge amount. I think strengths-based leaders maybe have that awareness that we are all different. I think what does kind of, stand out when we think about, leaders is that curiosity piece. So, a leader's role, one of the number one sort of skills for a leader is to be able to coach their people. And I think if you were to ask 10 different people how they would define coaching as an example, you're probably going to get 10 different answers, but I think it's as much about being curious and asking questions. I think leaders have a very tough job. They're expected to do more with less. I mean, they're probably one of the most disengaged population at the moment. If you think about if your leader's disengaged, then what's the knock-on effect that it's going to have with their team? But they're stretched from all corners, are asked to do so much more. So I'm not sure it differs a huge amount, but we do know that the leaders that are the most successful are ones that do take that strengths-based approach.
Yeah, I guess it would be difficult as a leader as well if you have a lot of pressure on you and taking your your own mood, what's in your mind forward while still trying to keep that strengths-based approach. Do you think that that makes effect, takes a
Um,
negative effect? I
yeah,
misread that.
ask the question again, sorry.
So, say we've got a leader and they have a lot going on in their personal life. There's a lot of pressure on their shoulders. Do you think that that would impact the leader that they are and their ability to use a strengths-based approach?
Um, I think it probably has an impact on them as a leader for sure. I think it would have an impact on anybody.
Mm-mm.
Would it affect their ability to have a strengths-based approach? Maybe. But if I think about, only this morning, I was coaching a group of, female leaders, helping them understand their reports. And we were talking about how a number of them have that strength of achiever, like to get stuff done and responsibility of doing what they said that they were going to do. But yet a leader can't take everything on themselves. They have to be able to sort of, delegate and develop their people. Now, I think when we're, hungry, angry, tired, under pressure, we can sometimes default to the basement of our strengths, meaning, just give it to me. It's going to be easier if I do it myself. And therefore, we're not delegating or empowering. But when we are, sort of happy and not hungry, angry, tired, then we're able to be at our best version of ourselves and we're
Yeah.
more likely to be able to use our own strengths. So, strengths can work against us sometimes.
Mm-mm.
As a person that's high activated communication, I can sometimes go, rushing off into things and talking too much. But if I, can reflect and say, this is where this is tripping me up, for instance,
Yeah.
then I can, be able to sort of give the other person the opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. I mean, I've got ADHD, so I talk a million miles an hour, and half the time I don't think before I talk. It comes out wrong, as shown in this podcast alone. Um, and sometimes the things, say you putting strength-based approach into action, it comes after whatever I'm saying, and that can be difficult sometimes. It's all in there, but I've said something wrong before I've put the strength-based approach into action sometimes. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but even that's reflection. To be able to reflect and
Yeah.
know that that's something that's happened means that you can kind of tweak and adjust and change. We're not perfect. I think as humans, we're ever evolving and developing. So to be able to go, oh, I mean, I'm exactly the same. Every school report I ever had said Charlotte talks too much, and
Yeah.
I'm now 53 and I'm forever refining that. It doesn't mean to say that I get it perfect, but I go sometimes, oh, yeah, okay, I said the wrong thing, or it came out, not how I expected it to come out, or the other person received it differently to how I anticipated, delivering it.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Most
I think
definitely.
we're
That's
all
cool.
we're all work in progress, whether
Yeah.
we're, neurodiverse or not.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, inclusive leadership and creating psychological safety are also very vital, especially if you're in an institution working with younger people, or anywhere. Psychological safety is vital. How can leaders actively address these biases in their coaching?
I think it kind of comes back to that piece about what is coaching. And I guess I like to define coaching as a method and a mindset to help the other person be better. And fundamentally, coaching is about asking questions. So I think removing those biases by being curious
Yeah.
and asking questions and asking more open questions, ones that are going to solicit the other person talking versus a closed question that you're going to get a yes or a no, I think is one of the best ways of, just being curious and asking questions. I think the other thing that can sometimes, trip us up when we're thinking about those biases is the assumptions that we make as well.
Yeah.
So, again, in some research, what they find is so many people don't know what's expected of them at work. So, how might a manager or a leader be really clear about what those expectations are and do it through that coaching lens and offer some clarity? I
Yeah.
think there are a couple of ways to sort of help remove some biases and assumptions that we might have.
Mm. Coming from the country in regional Victoria, it's quite different to moving up to Melbourne, up to the city. Even people's personalities are very different. In the country, we walk outside and wave to the neighbor and have a yarn for an hour. It's really, really different. I find people are much more talkative down in the country, and moving up here, I felt like people were putting judgment on me for
Mm.
having a talk, the taking too long with something, if chatty behaviors, and I didn't know how to act in the corporate world. So I did feel like my leaders were putting a lot of judgment on me for the way I knew how to be. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope it does. But I feel like they didn't take the time to understand what was behind that as well. And it can make you feel really down as an employee with a leader like that, that you feel like put judgment on you for who you are instead of what you can do as well. So
Mm.
I definitely know that I've in the past had leaders that haven't been able to fathom the idea of being inclusive or understanding others. Do you find that you do have some people that find it hard to fathom the idea of inclusive leadership? How do you approach that when they just don't want a bar of it?
I don't know that I've ever had somebody that doesn't want a bar of it. I think there is an appreciation and understanding that diversity is useful and matters, but I think it does come back to the assumptions that we make that somebody else thinks, feels, and behaves the same way as you do. And often it's not until a workshop where we see the aha moments that somebody has of, oh,
Mm,
that's why you do what you do. My
yeah.
gosh.
So, Charlotte, do you have a story of a time when embracing diversity through strengths coaching made a big impact? How did you personally feel that impact, or how did others feel it?
Well, I think every workshop that I do where individuals get to discover their strengths and feel seen and have a language to put to it, we see big aha moments. And I think they're always very impactful. But what it comes down to the most is often when others see their colleagues in a new light. And I think every time people walk away with some new insight, some new way of working. So I don't think I've ever done a workshop where there hasn't been that new takeaway or that new aha moment. I think it's why I love the work that I do the most, that people go, oh, I
Yeah,
get it now. And it's either for themselves. I love the Ethiopian saying that fish see water last. Sometimes we're so submerged in our own
yeah,
being that we don't necessarily see it. So sometimes people see things for themselves they didn't see, but then being seen by somebody else is amazing.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then realizing that, if we just leverage these differences and work together, then so much more can be achieved. So I think there are so many stories. Every time I do a workshop, there feels like there's a story from an individual or a story from a team. I think even for myself as well, understanding my own talents and strengths. And I've been married 25 years. Yet when my husband took his strengths and we compared them, there were some big aha moments for both of us as well. Of, oh, I get it now. So yeah, I think every time there's quite an impact.
yeah. So that would also really be great for relationship building, right? Within
Yeah,
companies. Yeah. Some people see other people in a different light, which leads to better relationships within your settings that you coach in. So I work with a number of leaders, and they all come from various roles, including education, business, the online world, influencing, and this can make their leader styles vary and their understanding of diversity very different. How do you make your coaching a universal learning design?
Oh gosh, that's an interesting question. I don't know that I ever do make it a universal design. I think I'm very much focused on outcomes. So
Mm,
whenever I speak to a leader or a stakeholder, again, it's what's the outcome that they're trying to achieve? What's the biggest challenge that they got? How do they want their team to be thinking, feeling, and doing differently as a result? So I think when I think about Clifton Strengths as a language, I'm high individualization, which means I actually tailor an awful lot of what I do. I
mhm.
think every workshop probably starts similarly in terms of grounding, but what we're trying to achieve for each of those groups is very different. So it's not like training where I'm imparting a same set of knowledge. It's absolutely more about facilitation. So I think the wisdom is already in the room. How do we make sure we draw that out and enable all voices to be heard? So I think there's some, maybe common ways of doing that, but every approach that I have with leaders is actually different because every team is different. Even if I'm working in the same organization and there might be three different IT teams, those teams are actually different, and the challenges that they've got and the goals that they've got are probably slightly different as well. So
Yeah, so you
probably
take
have to
go.
answer that one of going, I customize it.
Yeah, yeah. Behind you in the video, which will be on YouTube, is a whiteboard, I think, or a poster that says Clifton Strengths. Now, obviously, I haven't heard of Clifton Strengths before, funnily enough. Um, we just go by strengths-based approach, really. So this is quite interesting for me. Are you able to quickly explain what is on that whiteboard and
Sure.
yeah, and what they sort of mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned earlier about, Clifton Strengths as being the tool that I take. It's a Gallup, being a big polling company, developed the assessment. It's based on, over 50, 60 years worth of research, been around for about 20 years. 34 million people have taken the assessment, and you come out with 34 different talents that can be turned into strengths. And on the board behind me are my top 10 based on that assessment. So I'm an activator, which means to say I love energizing and inspiring groups to get moving, to take action. I'm high woo, which stands for winning others over. It's not about woo woo. It's more about socially courageous, love meeting new people. When you were saying earlier about, in country Victoria, you like stopping and chatting to
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
Chances are you're a woo too.
I'm a
Uh,
woo.
yeah, I'm high command. I don't like the word command because it sounds bossy. My husband would probably tell you I'm bossy, but anyway, for me, command means courage.
Mhm.
So courage to lead in the absence of others, courage to push back, courage to, kind of challenge. I'm high arranger. My arranger normally looks like arranging people. So it's like, oh, Brooke, you must meet with my friend Sarah, who also lives on the Mornington Peninsula
Yeah.
and also works in this area. I'm high positivity, which is why I love Clifton Strengths because it's focusing on the positives. Responsibility is all about doing what I said I was going to do and, having those core stable values of trust and honesty. I'm high communication. So again, I'm a big fan of metaphors. So I like sort of telling stories, using metaphors and analogies. I'm at my most energized when I'm in front of a group or standing on a stage. The bigger the group, the better. I'm a high maximizer, which is also a strengths lens of good to great. How do we take a team that's already, pretty good and make them even better? And I mentioned the individualization earlier about how I sort of tailor things, see everybody as a unique individual and tailor. And then up there is significance as well, which means to say I want to have an impact. So when I shared earlier about doing the Stephen Covey 7 Habits course and what's your mission and purpose in life, I realized that it wasn't IT. I love working with individuals and teams. So that's a quick summary of my
Good
top 10
summary.
kind of Clifton. Well, I live and breathe and work
Yeah.
in this area every day. So that's the top
How
sort of
many did you say
20.
there were?
There are 34
Yeah,
in total, but even if, say, you were to take the assessment and you also had woo,
yeah,
your report is very personalized to you. So your
yeah.
woo is not going to read anything like my woo because there's going to be something else that goes around it. So
And
the
is
Clifton
it?
Strengths Assessment, you answer 200 different
Yeah,
questions based on a kind of scale of you walk into a room, Brooke, are you more likely to talk to the person that you already know, or are you more likely to go and find somebody you don't know? And so it's working out which ones are higher for you. And the return on investment is if you focus on the ones that come naturally to you. This is
yeah,
how I naturally think, feel, and behave, versus looking at what's at the bottom of the report and saying, oh, I need to get better at that. That's
yeah.
not where you're going to get your return because that's not what motivates and energizes you.
Right. So when people start coaching with you, do you get them to do this online, 200 questions, and then you coach based on that?
Absolutely that. Yeah. So we give them a link, they go and take the assessment, they answer the questions. It spits out a personalized 26-page report
Wow.
that helps them with language about what makes them amazing and unique, and even some blind spots of watch out for, your communication, that you don't dominate the conversation, talk too much, meaning me. And then, yes, we sort of go through a process of helping somebody unpack that report. So we talk about this, sort of name, claim, and aim. Oh, yeah, I'm a woo. This is what it means for me, socially courageous. And this is how it helps me in my role. Then at a team level, then it's about helping people share that information with each other so that they have an appreciation of each other. So yeah, that's pretty much every coaching session I do is focused on that strengths-based lens. I do some that as what's called an ICF coach, International Coaching Federation coach, professional certified coach. So sometimes I don't use strengths, but I would say 96% of my work is probably strengths based.
How long would you work with a company or people, a team, or how long would you work with them? Is it one session or is that ongoing?
Oh, that also varies as well. So sometimes it is just, it might be one coaching session. It might be, a full day workshop.
Mhm.
My least favorite is probably when somebody says, Charlotte, can you come in and do a 90-minute or a 2-hour workshop? And when you ask about the outcomes they're trying to achieve, oh, we want to improve trust and collaboration and break down silos and communicate and understand each other. And like, Jay, that's a tall order to do in 2 hours. So,
Yeah.
I normally say a day. Now, sometimes we break that day up to 2 half days, or imagine that they're geographically dispersed. We might do 4 2-hour sessions. So, what I do like to do though is give them a good grounding. I always say, like building a house, you've got to dig firm foundations first before we go whacking up, the roof and decorating the place.
Mhm.
So I see my job as helping them dig those foundations and then arm them with tools and resources so that they can continue that journey themselves. Arm the manager with, great conversation guides, using different activities and tools. On my website, I've got lots of different, use picture cards to coach each other and, have deeper discussions on communication and breaking down silos and collaboration. So I very much want to empower them. So I individualize every session. No two teams' journey is the same. Sometimes I'm helping an organization become strengths based and therefore really going deep with the managers, working with champions within the organization to really help them sort of filter it through so that in effect they don't need me. I don't want them to have to keep paying. I work with some organizations that are strengths based themselves and have their own Clifton Strengths coaches internally. And I kind of go in and support and help them. We think about in Australia, Good Guys JB Hi-Fi are an amazing strengths based organization. And I just sort of help them when they need it, delivering a team workshop, for instance. So I like to see myself, and the reason why the organization is called the Strengths Partners is I partner with them to achieve the outcome, and how that is done depends on the time that they've got, the budget they've got,
Mhm.
their own internal capability.
Sounds like a great job you've got. Do you find that after you finish your sessions up or wrap up that people are generally more accepting or more willing to work with the diverse members of the team?
Do you mean diagnosed diverse or just in
Yeah,
general diverse?
say even as someone like me, diagnosed ASD, ADHD presents perhaps every one of us presents differently anyway. So we are all diverse human beings, but sometimes people can look and judge just by knowing what label you wear, which can be difficult. But in saying that, do you think that people take a second look at those people and say, wow, they've got incredible strengths? So,
I think they do, and
yeah,
I absolutely champion that. I think a whole chapter of my book, Career Unstuck, How to Play to Your Strengths and Find Freedom and Purpose in Your Work, was all
yeah,
about labels belong on jars
yes, yeah,
and that how we can sort of judge people for that. And I remember doing a workshop and somebody sort of saying, "Oh, I think they're probably autistic." Now, I too have my son is ASD,
hmm
ADHD, and dyslexic, and he has every label, under the sun thrown at him. But actually, he's quite proud of his difference.
yeah,
So, when I hear people say, oh, they probably do that because they're autistic, I might sort of challenge them back and go, well, yeah, they bring an amazing superpowers to the table. I think there are some things that us neurodiverse people, those strengths are heightened because we have to. If I think about my own dyslexia, my dyslexia shows up as spelling. I'm a rubbish speller, but I have to get creative about the language that I use or how I might describe something, or if I can't think about how to spell that word. I mean, I actually love ChatGPT these days because I
it's
use it
wonderful.
as my spell checker more
Yes.
than anything else. I've had Grammarly for years, but actually Chat's way better at
Yeah.
doing that and picking up some of my mistakes. So I think the answer to the question is yes. Do people still judge? Yes, they probably do. But I think awareness is absolutely getting better. There's a great report out there, Brooke, that you'll probably like that Gallup have done around strengths and neurodiversity. And it was really interesting to see one of the talent themes that I mentioned earlier that I have command. Command is the least likely to show up talent theme out of the 34. So if you think about the 34 million people that have taken the assessment, typically it only shows up in 1% of those people.
Wow.
And it can therefore sometimes be judged harshly because it's a little bit misunderstood. And then in the research that Gallup had, command sort of came up more with neurodiverse people. And it doesn't mean to say that every neurodiverse person has command, but those judgments that sometimes people can make on the person that pushes back or, challenges or speaks up or can be a bit direct. When you add to that some of the misconceptions people have about the negative side of neurodiversity versus the talents that it brings, then awareness is a great thing. The more that we can help people be aware, and I think that we're seeing so many more diagnoses. Is that the right word? So many more people being diagnosed as neurodiverse, and I
Yeah.
think awareness is growing now within organizations, and podcasts like
Yeah.
this and many other podcasts that highlight the benefits of having a diverse workforce, being neurotypical or neurodiverse.
Mm.
I think is slowly leading to a change and a shift.
I think so. And I mean, as you say, the numbers are rising because of awareness as well, I guess. So my boss always says to me, um, uh, like I work a million miles per hour, but I'm always looking. I get told something, and there's a process, and all I seem to think is the solution. I run to the solution. I wonder what strength that would be.
Well, there's restorative, which is likes being able to dive into a problem and try and solve the problem. So it could be that.
Problem solver.
Yeah, strategic is all about asking the what if question. Seeing patterns, seeing options. Could be a little bit of analytical, liking to look into the data, or a bit of learner of, enjoying it. It's often a combination. I describe it like, a dish. There's a number of different ingredients that go in to make up a cake, for
Yeah.
instance.
Yeah.
But it's the combination of those ingredients that make the cake tasty. We don't eat the butter, sugar, flour, eggs on its own. So it's like for you, Brooke, there's probably a number of different things that are contributing. Yes,
Yeah.
if you enjoy problem solving, then
I
that's your
do.
strength.
But the problem is sometimes I go too fast, and when people go too fast, mistakes can be made. But when it comes to problem solving, it feels like a problem's put there, and I know that, there needs to be a storyboard or something like that, but my mind is going blop, blip, blop, blip, blop. It's already doing the storyboard, it's already doing the analytics, it's already doing everything, and I'm coming up with the end product or the end solution. Whereas no one's seeing that background work because it's all in here. So people, some people can go, you need to do the steps beforehand, but it's too so hard to say to them. It's in here. I've created it in here.
Uh,
Then,
that sounds like strategic. And again, chances
yeah,
are you're probably high communication as well. And sometimes it's maybe just trying to be able to communicate that,
getting it
or
out.
being able to say, I don't necessarily know how I got there, but I did get there. But yeah, it's probably not uncommon. I know my friend Angela, she talks about the popcorn brain. There's lots of things going off in there, but somebody
Yeah,
doesn't necessarily know how. And
yeah,
sometimes it's just being able to sort of try and talk people through the steps. But I go, who are some of your best partners, Brooke, that might be able to complement when you feel like you want to kind of rush off into something? Who are your
yeah.
best partners that could help you?
I've definitely got some of those people, and at work, I've got one specific person who I say, I've got this. I need brainstorming time. So we go on for 10 minutes to Zoom. And I've also got a spreadsheet of a file that just says ideas. And there's all this crazy stuff on there, like write a kid's book, do this, just stuff that is completely random. But it's like I might have a dream and wake up and put it in my ideas file. So popcorn brain is always there. So before we wrap, what are your top tips for leaders looking to foster diversity and inclusion through a strengths-based approach? And what results do you think that they could expect by working with someone like yourself?
Well, for sure. It probably goes without saying. I strongly recommend that they, take the Clifton Strengths assessment themselves, or if it's not Clifton Strengths, there are many others out there. Marcus Buckingham's Standout,
They're
or
just online,
Strengths
are they?
Profile. They are online. Anybody can Google Clifton Strengths or
Yeah.
Gallup Strengths and find, the assessment, or they can come through me. Go to thestrengthspartners.com and take the assessment through me. But no, it's one of those ones that anybody could go online and take, or go to Dimmicks or the library and buy, the book Strengths Finder 2.0, and they open up the back of the book and take the code in there. So that would be the first one.
And by
The
your
second,
book,
buy my book,
what's
absolutely.
the name again?
Well, for those on the video as well,
There we
Career
go. Career
Unstuck.
Unstuck. How to play. What does it say, Shanice?
How to play to your strengths and find freedom and purpose in your work. So I found myself coaching an awful lot of people. And when I asked them on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you enjoy your work? A lot of people were a 3 or a 4. And it's like, wow,
Yeah.
how can we help you enjoy your work? We're spend over 80,000 hours of our life at work. I think you need to enjoy,
Yeah.
what you're doing. So I think leaders taking the assessment for themselves, then helping their team take the assessment. And again, coming back to this, being curious, asking questions, what does a great day at work look like to you? How can I help you be at your best? At work? What support do you need from me? When are those times when you're absolutely at flow in your work? When are the times when time just flies by and you go, gee, how did I get to do that? What are those glimpses of excellence in your work? So, there are so many more curious, open questions leaders can be asking that help unpack those talents and strengths for those people. How they can work with me is then, sort of having that session to help them unpack their report, and then obviously a team workshop that focuses on what's the outcome you're trying to achieve, what's the goal that you're looking for, and then how do we build that increased self-awareness, but the awareness of each other. And then the action piece is, all right, how do we put this into action? How is this not just a workshop that it's tick, we've done it, let's shove this report in the drawer and never look
Yeah.
at it again.
Which
How do we
means to
use
me.
it? Yeah. How do we use it in all the conversations that we have moving forward?
Mhm.
How do we take the data that we've got from our team? So we have some amazing data and spreadsheets that go, this is where there's a common pattern within this team of relators that build very deep, trusting relationships. But that also means that we can work in silos. So, what are we going to do to stop working in those silos? So, I like to make sure that the team walk away with some actionable steps that they could take that sort of help that conversation. And then I kind of drip feed them resources to continue that journey. So it's not just a once and done.
Yeah,
That's
and it
probably
doesn't stop. No,
my
it's
biggest frustration is when it is a once and done.
yeah, no, it does sound incredible. So just for a reminder for everyone out there, where can people buy your book and how much is it?
They can buy my book on Amazon or Booktopia, and obviously the prices on Amazon and Booktopia change on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Or they can go on to my website, either thestrengthspartners.com, or I have another one that's charlotteblair.com.au, or they could just Google Career Unstuck by Charlotte Blair and it will take them to my website and then they can purchase it. If they're in Australia, I can send it directly out, and I think it's something like $37 with postage and packing directly from me. If they put a note in there, I can sign it.
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
Purchase directly from the website, people, because you'll get a special note, huh? So,
absolutely.
Charlotte, it has been so wonderful talking with you. Can you tell us, I think you already just remind us of your website again for people who want coaching?
Yeah, well, probably the easiest one to remember would be charlotteblair.com.au. They need
Yeah.
to add the .au on the back. There's a AFL, Collingwood AFL player out there called Charlotte Blair as well. So, or just Google Charlotte Blair and, if it's the non-football one, then you
It'll
should
be
find me.
you.
Yeah,
So the spelling of that is Charlotteblair. Just for
correct.
anyone out there who didn't want to get that wrong, because it's not the AFL one, right?
Correct. Yeah.
That's you. So I thank you so much for coming on. And for everyone out there that's listening, remember to be open, be diverse, and stay kind. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Until next time, thank you.